Hello, and welcome back to It's a Very Exciting Time, a podcast by a UFO nerd and his tolerant friend. My name is Scott, and I've been fascinated by the phenomenon my whole life.
And I'm Chuck. I'm an aerospace nerd and a tolerant friend.
We started this podcast because since 2017, there have been shocking revelations, from news of secret Pentagon programs to confirmed videos of astonishing craft. In a nutshell, now that we know the government has recovered non-human technology.
Or at least we will, once Skywatcher tells us how to summon UFOs.
It raises a natural question. If UFOs are real, what else? Suddenly, some of these other parts of the phenomenon that seemed unlikely are pulled into the realm of the possible.
And they may still be unlikely. Although, after reading the show, it sounds like maybe it's more likely than I thought. But even if it's new science and not aliens...
Woo! It's a very exciting time.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of exciting, I just wanted to send out a quick thank you to some of our Discord members. Parsival and Wicker Marty have offered to be part of the welcoming committee. And they've just been like ceaselessly positive and warm and kind, and so I just wanted to appreciate them on the air. Thank you so much for helping us out.
Yeah, Discord is hopping, man. It's nice. Got a bunch of people chatting. People are often posting UFO news before I find it myself on Reddit that morning. So it's like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried there. Yeah. By the time that we get around to recording, it's old news to them. But you know what? If you're looking for a group of people, if you're looking for a group of tolerant friends, you could do a lot worse than our Discord.
They are right there. Yeah. And you can find the link on our website. It's super easy to find. So yeah. Cool. So what are we talking about today?
Chuck, it has been a very exciting 2 weeks. We met 2 weeks ago when you were just back from India, aka the backyard.
Yep.
And we had kind of a minimal episode. There wasn't a whole lot going on, but I was like, we got some stuff on the horizon. Yeah, in the last 2 weeks, Skywatcher, which is, if you remember, UFO whistleblower Jake Barber's organization, has been on fire. They got a brand new website. They put out like a framework for doing scientific research around paranormal topics. They released like a UFO classification guide, and they dropped the second part. Yeah. And they dropped the second part in their like documentary series. So Skywatcher Part 2 went up. So we got a whole bunch of new stuff. But as you can kind of tell from what I was saying, there's a heavy emphasis on leading with science, which I think is really good because naturally the first Skywatcher video was leaning pretty heavily on Jake Barber, right? He had just come out. Yeah. He had recently testified to Congress. He had his big interview with Ross Coulthart. So he was the talk of the town. And of course, Barber's big claims, beyond just validating what Grush has said, that there are secretive crash retrieval programs, was also, hey, I retrieved an egg-shaped UFO, and it psychically spoke to me, and the U.S. military employs psionic assets who can summon UFOs. And I think the conversation kind of naturally centered on what was new to the community, which was the psionic and more kind of woo stuff, which, as we know, there are members of the community who are interested in UFOs, but are a little more hesitant about like consciousness and psychic stuff. They want to stick to the more nuts and bolts. I don't blame anybody who feels that way. So Skywatcher Part 2 and everything they've dropped in the last 2 weeks, I think will help reassure those people that this isn't just Jake Barber hiring a bunch of psychics and running out to the desert to do peyote and, you know, see some UFOs. They're trying to do some real science, which we kind of knew because they're working with Dr. Gary Nolan, who we love.
Right.
But this time around, we got to meet a new member of the team. He's another partner at Skywatcher, and he runs their technology team. His name is James Fowler. And he had a quote that I thought was fascinating. He said, so we kind of stumbled into this. We pretty much face planted right on this topic. We didn't want this topic to come into our lives. I'm not a ufologist. I don't believe. I'm not Fox Mulder. I have no faith in UFO, UAP stuff. I have no belief in off-planet. Frankly, we follow the data. And the data we have indicates that there's probably 3 buckets. There's probably a blue bucket, American-made. There's probably a red bucket, made in China. And there's probably another bucket, which I don't know where that bucket comes from. This isn't a spiritual activity for us. This isn't emotional. This is strictly facts and data-driven, and we have tried very hard to keep it that way.
Oh, that's really interesting. So he said this isn't a spiritual activity for us. Is he talking about like the technology team? Who's
think
us?
he's talking about their overall approach. So while Barber is coming to this from a background of, hey, I have had psychic communication with a non-human intelligence. The other thing that Barber said that I think people kind of forgot about is that to him and the other guys from the military, psionics are just another type of technology. He said, we think of it the way you would think of Wi-Fi. Like, it is an asset that we have been trained to use. So I think what he's trying to say here is, even though some of the work we're doing is around kind of paranormal-y stuff, we are still approaching it from a very grounded, fact-driven mode, as opposed to starting with a theory and looking for evidence that supports it. And we'll get into that a lot more later. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, he seems to be coming at this from a very grounded, like, let's dig into it and see what the evidence supports approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So like this feels like kind of a direct response to like Barber's intro, which was so I mean, he had a lot of nuts and bolts too, but he had a lot of psionics and consciousness and
Absolutely.
And also I kind of like that one of the partners isn't a believer. Like,
right. I loved the I'm no Fox Mulder line.
Yeah.
That's so
right?
good. For our younger viewers, Fox Mulder was a famous paranormal investigator on a TV show from the last century called The X-Files. A 20th century TV show.
That is a horrifying statement, but you're right.
A late 20th century television program called The X-Files.
You know, we've looked at our analytics, and there's probably no one young actually listening to us. True. But anyways, So I bet he gets along pretty well with Dr. Gary Nolan.
I think you're probably right. And there was another quote from Gary Nolan in the next in Skywatcher Part 2. Gary Nolan, another partner at Skywatcher. I believe last time they said he leads the science team. So Fowler leads the tech team. Nolan leads the science team. And Nolan said, the usual question I get is, where's the evidence? Where's the data? In science, just having data doesn't mean anything. So the reason there's a scientific process is because it works. It's replicable, and it's the standard upon which all science is accomplished. So we're going to be able to collect the data and get it peer-reviewed. Not because the peer review tells you that your conclusion is right, but because it allows others to look at what it is that you did and determine whether or not you did it right.
Right, yeah. That's so awesome. I can't wait to read these. But to his exact point, I've been reading a lot of papers in the AI field recently, and they are very poorly put together. And so I think he's right. It doesn't prove that it's correct. It just allows others to help you find the answers. But if the thing about it is, like, AI is hot and easy to get peer reviewers, this topic is quite challenging to get reviewers, like, because of the stigma. How are they going to get people to, like, actually give that feedback in peer review?
Yeah, so we've talked about Nolan before doing a lot of things to try to destigmatize the topic. I mean, creating the Soul Foundation was exclusively about bringing UFO and paranormal research into an academic environment where people didn't have to be afraid that they'd be laughed out of the room. So that's definitely Nolan's bent. And knowing that that's his bent, they're bringing that to Skywatcher as well. And one of the things that they did to help support this, because it's not enough to just say, yeah, we're going to do research and get it peer reviewed. They wanted to say, look, we're going to make some big claims that are going to like upset some people. How do we go about validating those claims and presenting them in a scientific, rigorously grounded way? And what they've done is they've released what they call the Skywatcher Discovery Framework. I'm going to quote here from an article in the Liberation Times by Chris Sharp. He says, the Skywatcher Discovery Framework consists of 6 sequential levels, each requiring higher quality evidence and scrutiny before moving to the next. The framework, led by lead author and strategic advisor Matthew Pines, emphasizes the importance of scientific rigor in investigating the phenomenon. Quote, our near-term goal is to establish a repeatable, falsifiable process that can be tested independently.
What, so I love that Matthew Pines is involved in this as well. Like, this is a great list of names, but what does falsifiable mean?
As I understand it, falsifiable means that you could run a test that could return a false result. For example, to pick an example, there is no falsifiable test for God. I can say that God is real. I could maybe come up with an experiment, but at the end of the day, there's nothing I could do that would prove God doesn't exist.
Okay. Right.
So any test like this needs to have a possibility of coming back correct or coming back wrong. If you can only get results in one direction, it's not falsifiable. That is a very poorly attempt at explaining it. I'm going to remind everybody I'm an art major. I may have gotten it wrong, but that's how I understand it.
No, that makes sense though, because aliens are kind of one of those topics that it's in that gray area.
Right.
Like if they exist, sure, then we could prove it, but very hard to disprove. Interesting. Absolutely. Okay. So what are the 6 levels then?
Oh, yeah. So once again, I'm going to quote from Liberation Times because they did a nice little summary of it. If anybody is interested in more details, they go into a lot of detail. It's like a 50-page white paper that is available on the Skywatcher website. It's also linked in our show notes. But in a nutshell, they start from very little evidence to escalating levels of evidence to get people invested and believing. So level 1 is preliminary observation. You collect initial reports of sightings and filter out those with obvious explanations such as aircraft or planets.
Okay, so like someone saw lights in the sky, we're pretty sure it wasn't Venus or Starlink or an airplane or whatever. Okay.
Exactly. And this is where we kind of got hung up with the New Jersey drones, right? Like there was a lot of evidence out there, but it was being gathered by amateur people who weren't used to looking at the skies. And unfortunately, although we have talked about the fact that there are genuinely anomalous things happening with the New Jersey drones, almost everything you saw in the news was commercial flights, which made it harder to disagree with the White House when they came out and said it was all authorized traffic. Like, well, okay, it wasn't all, but yes, absolutely. A majority of the sightings the public were having were not weird. But anyway, so that's kind of level 1. Gather data, make sure that it doesn't have an easy explanation. Level 2 is structured data collection. So this is gathering data with instruments such as cameras and radar under standardized procedures, which yields tangible evidence for analysis.
Okay. So like verifying the sightings with instruments and procedures that people really trust.
Absolutely, right? Whereas level 1 might be cell phone videos. Level 2 is we've got corroborating evidence from multiple eyewitnesses from multiple vantage points. We've got high quality photography. We've got infrared. We've got radar. You know, like at this point, we're confident there was something there.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Level 3 is analysis and hypothesis testing. So you're going to analyze the high quality data and you're going to test hypotheses to see if conventional explanations hold. Only if anomalies persist after rigorous analysis does a case move forward.
Okay. So this is like we check the data, it's still happening, and we think it's true
Yeah,
based on the
and more
data.
importantly, it doesn't have a conventional explanation, right? Like we
Yeah.
checked, it was not swamp gas, it was not Venus, it was not Starlink. We have all the evidence. It's repeatable. It's verifiable. This is happening.
Okay.
Level 4 is independent verification and peer review. So invite independent experts to re-examine your data and attempt to reproduce your findings. Peer review and outside analysis at this stage ensure that the anomaly is real and not an error.
So this is like, all right, we check the numbers. We think it's true, but we're ufologists. So we hand it over to Dr. Gary Nolan. He
Yeah.
checked the numbers.
Yeah, and actually I wrote that into the notes, but now that I'm saying it, I think that's actually a bad example because Nolan is now part of their
Yeah.
team. But yes, the idea is you
Oh,
bring
yeah,
in
yeah,
an
yeah.
outside scientist who is theoretically not motivated by whatever your team is motivated by.
Sure. Yeah.
Level 5, once your your third party scientists have like validated your findings or at least not found any reason to say they were bunk, is public disclosure and review. So you're going to release the vetted findings openly for broad scrutiny. So where before you did kind of a limited like peer review set, this is now publishing, right? You're going to engage the public and scientific community to review, replicate, and challenge the results.
Okay, cool. So that's like publish the results, educate the public, try not to get laughed out of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then level 6 is like, you're done. This is everything has been discovered and integrated. If the evidence is conclusive, the phenomena is now accepted as part of official knowledge. At this final stage, UAP findings, whether exotic or mundane, are integrated into science and policy with full transparency.
Cool. So now we get to go out and find more or
Yeah.
like expand on it. That's great.
Yeah. Now, I know that was a lot. So they had
Yeah.
a nice little summary at the end that I really liked. They said, in practice, a case begins with a sighting, level 1, progresses through structured evidence collection, level 2, and undergoes rigorous analysis, level 3. If it is still unexplained, it is verified independently, level 4, disclosed publicly, level 5, and if conclusive, integrated into accepted knowledge at level 6. For example, a recurring fast-moving object captured on video might escalate from a field report to recovery of physical material, potentially revealing new physics or technology.
I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. If anything, maybe a little simplistic, but
Right?
but it sounds like the scientific method, to be honest.
It does, yeah, with a little bit more structure around it. And I kind of
Yeah.
thought the same thing. I'm like, okay, I like this, but like, it sounds kind of basic. And they addressed that at the end in a way that I really liked. They said, this framework is not just an academic exercise, but it is intended to be something that citizen scientists, enthusiasts, or any interested person can understand. A clear framework means the public can also gauge where a certain claim stands. For instance, if next month some group claims we have unambiguous sensor data of UAP demonstrating beyond state-of-the-art capability, or even we have retrieved exotic UAP craft, one can ask, have they provided level 2 and 3 analysis? Was there peer review like you would expect at level 4? If not, skepticism is warranted. In contrast, if a claim has progressed methodically through these stages, one might give it more credence. Thus, the framework also serves as a communication tool between investigators and the public.
Okay. Well, that answers the question of like how to study controversial things like UFOs, and get serious scientists to actually pay attention to it and peer review it. So
Absolutely.
makes sense.
And it helps too because there is a tension between what you have to write in a peer-reviewed academic paper and what you're going to put in the documentary video that you're putting online that is meant for rabid UFO enthusiasts, curious public, that's necessarily going to have a little bit more breathtaking, like, hey, like, remember in the last video, they were like, we saw a dog fight. And then, like, we
Yeah.
looked at the video, it's like, there were two UFOs.
Right.
Okay. Like,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a stretch to call that a dogfight. I don't doubt that something happened, but you didn't show something to me that I would call a dogfight. So
Yeah.
I like that this framework is clearly like behind the scene, not even behind the scenes, like overtly, Dr. Gary Nolan and our new guy Fowler have been working together with Matthew Pines on how do we take this information and present it to the public while destigmatizing the topic by focusing exclusively on evidence.
Yeah. I I love it. So now, also, I'm gonna mess up Fowler's name a lot because there's a Martin Fowler in computer science, and anytime I see Fowler, I just think Martin, but this guy's James Fowler. All right.
Yeah.
Anyways, uh, so okay, so now that we have a framework, what do we do with it? Are there any like where are there initiatives on this framework?
Sure, absolutely. From the same white paper, Skywatcher says, our team is prepared to set an ambitious but achievable goal to scientifically resolve whether electromechanical signaling or neuromeditative interaction are credible and repeatable processes for attracting UAP by the end of 2025.
Wow. Okay, so they've got 8 months left to prove whether mechanical or psionic summoning works. That is bold.
Yeah, I love that. An ambitious but achievable goal. But yeah, they are not messing around. I
Yeah.
will give them full credit here. They are putting table stakes down. They're saying, yes, we are working on this. And it's not just the usual stick with us, like good things are coming down the pipe, any day now. Like,
Right.
no, they're like, by the end of the year, we are following this scientific framework and we're either going to prove or disprove it. That's a bold
Cool.
freaking claim,
Let's
man.
go.
Like, awesome.
Yeah. It's a very exciting time.
It's a very exciting time.
Okay, so like, where are they at on their framework? Like, I want to judge how far along they are.
Right. So yeah, they mentioned two things, right? They call it neuromeditative interaction, but basically what they mean is psionics summoning a UFO. In
Okay.
the paper, they said neuromeditative interaction. Well, actually, before I answer this, I know that you already peeked at the notes, but set aside any knowledge you may have retained. Where would you guess they think psionics and mechanical summoning are at? Based on what you have heard them say publicly, based on the videos we've seen so far, like they seem pretty confident, right?
I think Barber is at level 5, and I think that Fowler is at level 2.
Right. So this is what I love about this framework. They're not. They are definitely not there. So they said neuromeditative interaction is currently assessed at level 2 of our framework, which means the team has collected some structured observations, but has not begun formal hypothesis testing. The next steps focus on tightening controls and ruling out normal explanations. Additionally, Skywatcher intends to monitor the physiological signals of the participants, such as brainwave activity via EEGs and heart rate variability, to find any measurable changes that coincide with UAP sightings.
Interesting. I wonder what that heart rate variability would indicate. But yeah, anyways, so okay, so early days for psionics, but they're starting. What is this mechanical summoning?
Oh, buddy, buckle up. The document, and I'm quoting again from Liberation Times, the document explains how 5 years have been spent refining a set of electronic triggers dubbed the dog whistle, intended to prompt a UAP to show up. According to Skywatcher, preliminary results have been repeatable, with their signal configurations reliably drawing UAP to appear or fly directly overhead during field tests.
Fascinating. I was just watching a video yesterday about someone replaying some whale call. and the whales coming out.
Right?
Sounds kind of like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, dog whistle is an interesting word for it. What level is that at?
Skywatcher is treating electromechanical signaling as a hypothesis in level 3, the analysis and testing phase, rather than a proven phenomenon. To advance confidence, the next step is moving to level 4, independent verification.
So this makes it seem, if they think they can get to level 6 in 8 months, but it took them 5 years to get to level 3, that implies that it's either not linear or they're wrong.
So we're going to talk
4,
a
5,
lot
and 6
more
go
about
very
this.
quickly.
But in a nutshell, I think level 2 and level 3 are the time-consuming bits. That's the research, hypothesizing, and testing. And we'll talk a lot more about this. But effectively, they are at the point where they have built a device that they believe and are testing that summons UFOs. And they are ready to start pulling in independent scientists to verify those results.
That's crazy.
Once you have published a methodology and a framework for this, theoretically, reproducibility and peer review wouldn't take too long. So I don't know. Again, I'm not a scientist. I've never published papers, but it doesn't seem like getting to the end of the year to say, hey, here's a device we built, and every time we turn it on, a UFO shows up. It seems like that would get proven or disproven pretty quickly.
Yeah. That is really interesting that they're ready to like ship this. Have they released any papers yet? Do you know?
No, not yet. But yeah, let's talk about the dog whistle, because
tell me more about it. Yeah,
they talk a lot about it. They don't, of course, give us any technological details about it. The most we get is that it emits some sort of signal. So your guess is as good as mine. Of course, the internet has already cracked it. If you watch Skinwalker Ranch, they are constantly picking up a background signal at 1.6 gigahertz, which is not a naturally occurring signal. It's normally in the like communications broadcast range, but nobody's communicating. They're on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, and it shows up when they're interacting with the phenomenon. So there's been a theory on Skinwalker Ranch for a while that 1.6 is the kind of like phenomena thing. Big Daddy Lou has hinted for a while that there is a particular frequency that the military knows about, that either they can detect UFOs using this frequency or they can summon them using this frequency. I'm guessing whether it's 1.6 or a different frequency, this is something similar, where in the military, they were able to determine this is the frequency. These guys are now out in the private sector. And hey, guess what? We built a device that emits the signal we learned about in the military, and certain things happen. So I don't know, but that's me reading between the lines. That said, let's talk a little bit about Fowler, their head of the tech team. So he does not give us a lot of details about his past, as opposed to Jake Barber, who gave us an extensive and largely unverifiable resume of covert actions. Fowler just says very simply, after my career, I started running different projects for the government as a subcontractor. That is the extent of the info we get. And through those activities, we started noting anomalies, and one thing led to another, and now we have what we believe is compelling data on UAPs. We have been collecting UAP data for more than 5 years with electromechanical signaling, which we call our dog whistle. After we turn on the dog whistle, UAPs literally come to us day after day.
So hang on, 5 years. Is this like predating Skywatcher, or has Skywatcher quietly been around for a lot longer?
Yeah, they don't explain that. My read on it is Fowler was doing this with a company he set up, similar to how we heard Barber say, like, he set up, a helicopter retrieval company that was mostly a legitimate business, but the main purpose of it was to provide a legal front through which the government could hire him to come do his contractor stuff. Maybe this is the same kind of thing. Fowler set up a company where he was doing signal analysis stuff for the military, and now that's been folded into Skywatcher. But I don't know. It's also possible Skywatcher has been around longer. They literally do not answer it. Yeah. To the best of my knowledge, Skywatcher is brand new, but they're like, we've been doing this 5 years.
Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, what happens when they turn the dog whistle on?
Okay, so Ross Coulthart asked Jake Barber that. Jake Barber and Matthew Pines were in an interview with him. Mm-hmm. And Matthew Pines kind of hemmed and hawed, and he gave a longer answer, which I'll read in a few minutes. But Barber went, okay, look, I'm gonna just be bold here and just say it. 100% of the time when we run our operation with the dog whistle, we get results in broad daylight that is visible from multiple observation posts.
It's like, I don't know how to respond to that. Like, on the one hand, 100% is like jaw dropping.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like, I do a lot of analytics, and I feel like when I see 0 or 100%, I'm like super suspicious of cherry picking. Like, there wasn't a single day where there was fog or an equipment failure or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, that cherry picking or mechanical failure. Yeah, you don't see
something
100% or 0% without something being broken.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Fowler said, we started a systematic cause and effect experimentation. Every time we turn on this equipment and do the things we need to do for the right amount of time, we get a response. Every time. We have also experimented with not using the equipment and seeing if we see things, and we have not, which is interesting.
That is actually a really interesting point. Like, imagine doing this for 5 years, and then you're like, you know what, we should try just going up to the vantage point and see if they show up. Just in case. And imagine like they do that one day and they still show up and they're like, fuck, what does the dog whistle do? Does it even do anything? Are the aliens just trying to figure out why we like this tower?
You were talking about falsifiable earlier.
Yeah.
They maybe still sell this thing. It's a little whistle you can attach to the bumper of your car called a deer whistle. And it is supposed to whistle at an ultrasonic pitch that basically it's like you're blaring the horn the whole time you're going down the road, and it keeps deer from running out in front of you. But the problem is you can't hear it. So you can't tell if it's working. And hitting a deer with your car is a rare event. So as you're going down the road and you continue to not hit a deer, is it because the deer whistle is working? Or, you know, who knows? But basically they thankfully did realize early on, like, hey, we tested turning it on. Have we tried testing with it turned off? And this is where Matthew Pines gave a little bit of a longer answer. Matthew Pines, by the way, is engaged with Skywatcher. He has been brought on as a senior advisor. He is not one of the partners, which I don't really know what to make of that. Like, I'm glad he's involved, but it's interesting that he's not just like fully joining the team. So Pines said, in order to get confidence, you need to have a control, right? So the dog whistle is a certain very characteristic type of signal that you put out there, and then you wait to see if you're going to see a characteristic set of observed UAP phenomenon appear or not. And then you do everything else, ideally as constant as possible, and you do a sort of random noise signal. Nothing that you know is associated with attracting UAP. And you see, right, with every other condition the same, do UAP appear or not? When you flip the dog whistle on, the UAP appear. If you just flip on a random noise signal, they do not.
I mean, I'm no scientist, but it does seem like they're doing the the things I do when I test my code. So, okay, so my last question is, how many tests have they done? Because like 100% of 2 tests is not very exciting.
Yeah. I don't know how many tests they have run, but Fowler did address numbers a little bit. He said, we have had over 300 sorties now of UAP incursions into our airspace where we're working. I call a sortie when we have an observation of a class of UAP moving through airspace. That class might be a flock. We have seen flocks of up to 20 plus, and we also have singletons that move through. So we have seen hundreds of UAPs. Perhaps we're running an event and we have 200 sorties in a day. We don't know if that's one aircraft that we're seeing 199 times more, or if that's 200 separate airframes, aircraft, UAP, whatever they are, moving through our airspace separately. So we just call it a sortie and accept what we don't know, and accept that as an observation from a technology and science perspective. This is one set of data.
Well, shit, I gotta say, I'm out of skepticism at this point.
We're going to have
like,
to hire a new skeptical buddy to come on the podcast.
I know, we are.
So no.
I feel like I've been thinking about that for a while.
You've
like,
been trending.
have I gotten too deep in already? Like,
to be fair, we never billed you as a skeptic. You were tolerant.
That's true.
And you're still tolerant.
I'm just a tolerant friend. Yeah. Yeah. So it seems like Fowler and Nolan are keeping them on course with like pretty good, repeatable science. That's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I totally agree. And, while I personally am totally into the woo-woo stuff, right? I want to hear more about the psionics and the consciousness. And, this is really going to help with the nuts and bolts crowd. Like having them say, hey, we've got, an air horn over here. And when we turn it on, UFOs fly up to us every single time. Well, shit, man, that's repeatable. That's testable. Invite out, Kozlowski, the head of Arrow. Invite out, Mick West. Like, get all the people who are skeptics and show it to them.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, look, we've danced around long enough. You're talking about the dog whistle and the science. Let's get to the UAP. What did they see? Eggs, 8 guns, something else?
Yeah, so Fowler says, in order to make sense of our data, we had to define a lexicon, and we based it on flight characteristics. We have broken the UAPs we've observed down into 9 classes or types. Some of these classes may be the same UAP under different flight configurations. Each UAP class has different characteristics. Some shimmer, some tumble, some spin. Some look like they're alive and they just fly like a living object in the sky. At this point, given their behavior, we are confident they do not align with conventional or terrestrial explanations.
Okay, so there's 9 different classes. That even satisfies Chuck's razor.
I haven't heard of Chuck's razor.
I know, yeah. It's the first time I've said those 2 words next to each other, but I believe this for a long time. That if a system of like classes or axes only has 2 axes, it is overly simplified and wrong. Scam artists have very simple systems, but in reality, things are so much more complicated. So 9 axes of different like things, that sounds great. I like it.
Cool. I'm looking forward to your updated version of the D&D alignment chart.
I was just thinking this sounds like the monster manual.
Okay, but yeah, let's talk about the classes because, oh, buddy, have they seen some wild stuff. Class 1 is called the Tetra. This is a tetrahedron-shaped UAP, which tumbles on multiple axes while on a stable flight path. They often appear in groups of 3 to 20 plus. Fowler says the Class 1 often spins and tumbles through the sky. The craft looks like a black body. It appears to flash or pulse multiple times per second. There also appears to be some kind of cloud or vapor around it. We have seen Class 1s in formations up to 20 to 23, flying in different flight formations.
Wow, that's crazy. Tumbling, vapor, formations. Like, I want to know so much more.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't get a whole lot more. I should have said this at the start. If you go to Skywatcher's website, again, linked in our show notes, they have a page there that has like a little info card on all of the different classifications, and they're looking to be adding more information to it over time. So that's probably worth keeping an eye on. And they're very careful to note, this is an emerging taxonomy. This is not like settled and final. This is just what currently maps to the data we're seeing. But as he said, we don't know. Like maybe some of these are the same UFO, but this one they had the sublight engines turned on, and that one they had the warp drive turned on. Like who knows?
Yeah.
Class 2 is the Tic Tac. Cylindrical UAP that hovers. It elongates during stable flight, and it has an area effect on electronics and aircraft. It is seen in groups of 1 to 3 and often observed with the manta ray in proximity.
Wait, we've got manta rays too?
Yeah, that's class 5. Hold tight. Fowler says,
I'm ready.
We've seen Tic Tacs in groups of 2 to 3, often flying very erratically. We see them come straight down, as if from space, tumbling and spinning at Mach 2 plus.
I can't tell whether that's weird or not. Like, if it's coming in from space, it'll start all the way at, like, Mach 22, but they slow down to Mach 2 by, like, I don't know, 65 to 75,000 feet.
How fast is Mach 2? I don't actually know anything about Mach. Like, all I hear is Tom Cruise. Like,
yeah, I think I think Mach 1 is, I get them mixed up between meters per second. I think Mach 1 is 750 miles per hour. Mach 2 is like 1,500.
Okay, yeah. So it's fast.
But yeah, it's fast, but like it's actually totally normal. If they're looking at like the 65,000 foot range, Mach 2 would be totally reasonable for a human craft to be re-entering orbit.
Got it. Now, of course, this gets
atmosphere.
back to the thing that we talked about with the Tic Tacs, you know, and the thing we've always said whenever we describe what people say when they see these things is individual parts of what they do may be totally explainable. We have human objects that can reach these speeds. We have things that re-enter from space. What we don't have is what they often observe with the Tic Tacs, which is they fall from 80,000 feet to a few meters above sea level and stop, like dead stop, and hover in the air for hours. That's really weird.
Yeah, with no sonic booms and like other observable things. Yeah,
totally. And Barber echoed this. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you know what altitude they were at, or?
Barber kind of echoed the claims that we have heard from other places. He said it showed up for several days in broad daylight, dropping from above 80,000 feet.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. That could be totally normal.
Like we don't know what it did at the end of dropping from 80,000 feet. If it impacted the ground, it's a very obvious, mundane explanation is possible. If it stopped above the ground, a little more curious.
Or if it continued at Mach 2 below 7,000 feet, like
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this all brings us back to Lou's observables, right? And we don't need to talk about the Tic Tac too much. We've done episodes on the Nimitz in the past where they encountered the Tic Tac. They were seeing these things on radar all over the place. They were interacting with them in the air. The Tic Tacs are very unusual. The thing I find interesting, and we'll hear this repeated across a bunch of them, is they tumble and spin as they go through the air. That's not something that we see man-made aircraft do, because all of our aircraft rely on some form of positive lift. You need stable wings or propellers for that. If you're tumbling through the air, you have no control surface that is constantly interacting with the air. So even if you've got the right speeds, even if you've got the right materials, even if it has a freaking made in Russia sign on it, if it's tumbling through the air, it's doing something we don't understand, you know? So that is very interesting on its own. Keeping going, because we got a bunch of these to get through. Class 3 is Blob. This is an orb-shaped UAP that exhibits pulsing internal light, horizontal oscillation, and erratic point-to-point movement. It is capable of extreme speed and rapid flare-driven expansion, and is observed exclusively as a singleton.
What? It's just a blob? Like, is it solid or cloudy?
Fowler says it is a pulsing, vibrating cloud. There is something, maybe perhaps a cylinder, kind of in the middle, that has a different light, like a flame, and then it vibrates and pulses as it moves through space.
What? Okay. I need. It's just a confusing description. Can you say
It's
more or
absolutely.
like?
There's not a whole lot more to give you, unfortunately. This is one of the problems with blobs, and the orbs have been reported before. Basically, what we see is a light. And
Mm,
as you know, a light could just mean we're looking at something that has a very powerful light pointed at us, or it could be something like a freaking plasma orb hovering in the air. Like we need more
right.
three-dimensional information to tell us what we're looking at than just a light. Fowler
Yeah.
goes on to say it looks like a Pepto-Bismol, and in this case he's referring to the color. He's got a video up of it, and it really is. It's like
Okay.
an intense magenta or pink. He says it looks like a
Wow.
Pepto-Bismol blob in the sky. I don't even know how else to say it. It pulses and vibrates, and I don't know what that means. I don't know why we're seeing that, but it's definitely in the sky.
Well, that extra description didn't help at all.
It
It's
really didn't.
super weird.
I do
Wait, so
love
you've
that the
seen the
science
video,
guy
though?
gets to the end and he's like, it's definitely in the sky. Like when we're getting down to like the things we could say definitively about it, like it's up there.
It's there. I'm pretty sure. So you said you saw a video of it?
We'll talk a little bit more about the videos later, but in a nutshell,
Okay.
yes, if you go watch the Skywatcher video, they have footage of most of these. Prepare yourself to be a little disappointed. This is very blurry, long distance footage. It looks like all the other stuff we've seen before. The one thing, which they will talk about later, and I think is worth emphasizing, is none of their footage is recorded at night. So we're not dealing with a New
Yeah.
Jersey drone situation of there's a light in the sky and it could be freaking anything. All of this stuff is filmed in the daytime, but the distance is so large that effectively we're dealing with like 10 pixels on screen, and there's enough to let you infer a shape, and they do that, but definitely the footage is not like the crystal clear close up of like a metallic craft that we're all kind of hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. It's
But
hard.
here's the thing, man. They keep getting weirder. Class 4
Okay.
is called Beam. It is an infrared only orb shaped UAP that vibrates while in a stable flight path. It hovers in place for hours at a time and is seen in pairs.
Infrared only? What is
Yeah.
that? Like,
Fowler said the
what's that
Class
mean?
4 is an orb. We have only seen it on infrared cameras. You cannot see it with the naked eye. The Class 4 seems to only come during certain activities in conjunction perhaps with the Class 1. We don't have enough data yet to confirm.
Cool. So it's invisible, except invisible and hot. That's neat. Isn't
Or
low
cold.
observability
I don't
one
know
of
if
the...
it's hot, but it is visible
sure,
on
yeah.
infrared.
Okay, got it. Isn't low observability one of the 5 observables?
Absolutely it is. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Class 5 is the manta ray, like we teased earlier.
All right.
This is, as you might guess, a manta ray shaped UAP that tumbles on multiple axes. It is rarely seen and observed in proximity to Tic Tacs. Fowler said it seems to tumble and rotate as it moves through the sky. It's round everywhere. I don't think there's anything straight or nearly straight on it.
Okay. Does it move like a proper C flap flap?
It does not. It seems to be a solid shape, but it's like if you made like a 3D model that kind of infers like manta wings and kind of a bulge at the front where the head would be. It kind of looks like that, but it's solid, and as it flies in a straight path through the air, it tumbles. So it's not wings that are like lift
Yeah.
surfaces. It's just shaped like that for some reason. I don't
Weird.
know.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of these do that sort of like tumbling thing. I guess if you don't care about G-forces and you have infinite power to push through air, why make a
Right.
craft that flies smoothly?
I am really looking forward to someday when we learn how these things fly and someone comes out with like the scientific principles that explains why it makes perfect sense that when you turn on the plasma vapor drive, You know, this thing will move very quickly through the air and can ignore gravity, but also it's going to tumble erratically. Is there a
Yeah.
reason for that? Is it just fun?
I
Maybe
mean,
the ducks
it
like
would
getting
tumble
dizzy.
erratically. Yeah, right. Yeah. It would tumble erratically if you had no like streamlined lifting surfaces. If you just
Yeah.
throw a cylinder at Mach 2, it's going to tumble. So,
Yeah.
could just be air resistance. I don't know.
Class 6 is called Bright Star. It is a reflective tetrahedron shaped UAP that oscillates horizontally. They said that about several of these, and I don't know what that means
Yeah.
other than it jumps back and forth, but that's a weird
Yeah.
thing.
That's weird.
It flashes light. The team has experienced sensor disruption, apparently caused by directed energy. Fowler said that one vibrates very, very fast. It literally looks like a crystal in the sky.
Amazing. So, crystals, these guys have everything. It's just adding up.
Oh, buddy. We haven't even gotten to the best one yet. Well, I mean, we're getting here
Yeah?
now. Class 7
Okay.
is jellyfish.
Ooh.
This is a jellyfish
Commonly regarded
shaped-
as the fastest animal.
right. Yeah. This is a jellyfish shaped UAP with seeking head motion and trailing tentacles. It exhibits a localized area effect on electronics independent of specific targeting or interaction with sensors.
What? What is that even? Wow.
Fowler
Okay.
said, "We think the head of the jellyfish is about 2 meters in size. We think the tentacles hanging down are about 3 to 5 meters in length. The nodules on the tentacles light up. It appears to go from head to tail and pulse and light up the nodules in line as it goes."
Wow. Okay, so that is actually really small. An F-35 fighter jet, which is itself kind of tiny, is 10 meters in wingspan. So this is like a fifth of the wingspan.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
Tiny.
2 meters, that's the width of a passenger car, right? So I'm imagining
That's
the head is like the size of a Volkswagen Beetle with like long trailing tentacles. Yeah, very strange.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 2 meters tall. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and the
so-
tentacles light up.
Yeah, so the tentacles light up. That's super neat. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I fell asleep under a glowing a glowing jellyfish at a Seattle rave once. It was a lot bigger than 2 meters, but
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
right there.
you know.
I've got a very clear mental picture.
There you go. Now, how confident are you that it was part of the rave decoration and not a visitation from a being from
You
extraterrestrial?
know what? It was a pretty cool place. It could have been a visitation.
So yeah, the jellyfish man. Fowler says it seems to undulate as it moves, swimming in the sky. We have seen these take direct flight paths. We had 2 moving in formation. We chased down one of those 2, and it deviated its flight path as we approached, and then it elevated directly straight up, as in directly vertical.
What were they chasing it with?
A helicopter, of course. This is still Jake Barber's crew, right?
Oh, right, yeah,
Helicopter
okay.
pilot extraordinaire. They actually had a little segment. He wasn't in this video much, but he was in one segment where he was explaining why they prefer helicopters to drones. They always have a couple helicopters on standby. It basically boils down to, a helicopter can hover for hours and you can put people in it. Also,
Yeah,
I think
that
it's just
makes sense.
Jake Barber likes flying helicopters. We're going to go out and
I don't
investigate
blame him.
UAPs. I'm going to fly a helicopter
Yeah.
up to one.
Yeah, right. I get it. And I love that they chase it, and it's just like, poof. I'm out.
Bye.
See you, losers.
Yeah, totally. So let's do these last 2 classes real fast because I think we're kind of dragging a little bit here. Class 8 is called the Hornet. This is a dual body UAP with hanging tendrils and asynchronous rotation. Fowler says it looks very similar to the Class 7, the jellyfish, except it's bigger and it almost looks like it's a jellyfish carrying something.
Carrying. Obviously, it's carrying ducks, right?
Yeah. And Class 9 is, you guessed it, the egg. Off-white egg-shaped UAP provisional class delegation. It has no corroborated motion, structure, or spectral data. Basically, they saw it on the video that Jake Barber brought them. Fowler says, the Class 9 is not something we have a lot of data on. It's very limited. We had it at Skywatcher during our California event. Oh, yeah, I forgot. They did film it in the air once. It is an emerging class. We have strong evidence that it probably exists, but we don't have the data to concisely describe it.
So, I mean, it sounds a lot like the Tic Tac, but I don't know. Maybe it's interesting. So it sounds like
this
maybe.
Is what, I want to follow up on that. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Part of the problem with the footage being so low res is when you're looking at like 10 blurry pixels blown up on a big screen, you can infer a shape from it. Absolutely. And if you look at the footage of the manta ray, it does. It looks like a manta ray. Like you can infer the shape as it tumbles around on screen, even with very few pixels. But when you're dealing with the difference between an orb, a cylinder, and an egg, there's not a lot of detail there. And they even mention with the Tic Tac, they seem to change shape sometimes. Some of them seem to kind of bend in the middle or wobble. So I'm not completely convinced that eggs, orbs, and Tic Tacs are all completely different. I think they are seeing enough data that they behave differently or have different flight characteristics beyond just the shape. But definitely, like,
Yeah, okay. So what about, like, the 8-gon, flying saucers, big triangles, like... What,
it feels like they left a few out, right? Barber said, we don't have enough data yet on several types that some of us have only seen with the naked eye or captured on low-resolution cell phone videos. We need supporting data in order to create a class. Specifically, this includes large black triangles, discs, and the 8-gon.
Okay, cool. I mean, this is already such a good monster manual. I'm encouraged that they're only including the things that have got that like level 2 like classified data. That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's encouraging because one of the fears people had was that like Lou would come out and he would basically be like, here's all the stuff I saw in the military, and just like put it out there, but he can't give you any of the supporting data. Like, just trust me, the government has loads of footage of this. I can tell you this craft exists. These guys may very well know of other shapes. Jake Barber has personally flown an 8-gon more than once. He had psychic connection with them. They didn't put it in the list because they don't have sufficient evidence to meet their scientific framework that they outlined earlier. So this kind of all comes back to the beginning. Even though they're putting out what feels kind of preposterous, a list of wild UFO shapes, it's still grounded within the framework. These are things we have seen and documented, and we believe we can classify based on the following things.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got 300 sorties, like, that's a lot of potential classes. It's pretty
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned earlier the quality of the footage. I want to talk about that a little bit because they said some really interesting things about the footage. And to their credit, they were not trying to make excuses. They were trying to explain the difficulties they're facing and the steps they're looking to take to address it in the future. First of all, as I already mentioned, Fowler said, all of our data has been daytime. We have no data from night. None of our data are lights in the sky that you have to squint your eyes or put your finger on your nose and hope that what you see is what you want to see. All of our data is broad daylight, well lit, and very viewable.
That's cool. That's very promising.
Now, that said, Fowler continued later. He said, the system operator is having a very hard time keeping these UAP in frame because they're moving so fast. Our servos don't move that fast. Our equipment can't handle that zoom factor with the speed. And this is an important point, is I think they are filming these things at incredible distances. They're out in the middle of the desert. They summon something, they have radar, and they see something that's I don't know, miles away, and they point effectively a telescope at it, but the thing is whipping through the air. So it's not that it's
Yeah.
impossible to image, it's that there are challenges that they are facing.
Yeah. 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 When we were doing Wi-Fi tests at Mach 3 for the Portland State Aerospace Society, and we had a like actual shoulder-mounted Wi-Fi cannon
Oh, wow.
that we would kind of track up.
Uh-huh.
But it is very hard to like keep lined on it, and we would, even though we had a nice system that was very easy to move, it was only Mach 3, and it was like within 20,000 feet. If they're doing 80,000 feet and even faster, it's super duper hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
it gets weirder because that is a challenge that I think we all understand. A small
Yeah.
object very far away from you, moving very fast, is hard to film.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's not an insurmountable one.
Yeah.
There are entire cottage industries out there of people who have developed technology to film very small things moving very fast. The example
Yeah.
everybody on Reddit pulls up is the camera technology they've had to develop for hockey games, where they're tracking
Yeah.
the puck across the ice. Like, this is absolutely a thing that can be solved. And people are a little
Yeah.
frustrated with Barber and his team for not having better quality equipment. We mentioned this in the first video, that they were showing what appeared to be legit, literally cell phone footage. And like, bros, like, get a freaking like camera with a zoom lens on it. They
Yeah.
seem to have done
Yeah.
that, but even that step. And now Fowler adds to it. He says UAPs are extremely hard to image. What is seen with the naked eye is generally not what is seen under camera.
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
wild statement. Not sometimes different, not at times different, generally not.
So I'm guessing that you're immediately going towards consciousness, right?
I mean, it's hard to ignore that, right? Like, and here's the thing. I will acknowledge it's going to be really hard to get skeptics and scientists to accept that when I look at this thing, it looks different than when I point a camera at it. Unless the scientist is out there looking at it with you, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to trust the camera, buddy.
Yeah, right.
But there is a famous UFO case that I don't have time to get into now, but if you go look it up, there's a Canadian woman named Dorothy Izat. That's Izatt. In a nutshell, she started seeing UFOs who were psychically communicating with her, and nobody believed her, so she started taking Super 8 footage of them. And she ended up with over 25 hours of footage. Now, the footage is of bright lights that wobble around in the camera. I don't want to make anybody think that she's got like crystal clear close-ups. But what was fascinating about it was she was able to do this repeatedly and reproducibly. And there were a lot of skeptics who came in and thought that there was something to do with her camera. So they had her do it on the spot and like trade cameras with them. And the wild thing that would happen is they would have two people standing there, Dorothy and another person, both holding Super 8 cameras. They would both point their camera at the sky when Dorothy said there was something up there. Nobody else can see it. It shows up on her footage and not on the other person's footage. And then they go, okay, obviously this is the camera. So they make her trade cameras, and it still works that way. Like,
oh, that's so cool.
So it's
like,
a wild case.
You've been feature flagged in.
Yeah,
like, you get
totally.
to see us.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and I think we even mentioned this before, this idea of this feels like, as a programmer, I'm like, oh yeah, Dorothy has like permissions to see it. Nobody else does.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter what kind of camera you have if you don't have permissions. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that a consciousness thing? Is that a psychic thing? Is it reality as a simulation? I don't know. But
is she just better at aiming cameras?
There's definitely history in the lore for this idea of selective visibility, not just like low visibility, but selective visibility that appears to be aware of who is observing it and how and with what intention. Do with that what you will.
Now you're getting into yeah. There's some quantum physics stuff in there too that's weird.
For real.
If anyone is interested in quick moving camera technology, Marcus Brownlee did a video just a little while ago about how they do it with golf balls.
Oh, nice.
And it's actually a really interesting thing. But it makes me think that Skywatcher could be working with those kinds of people.
Absolutely. So
I
setting
also know
aside
the challenge is
the
different.
weird issue of quantum and consciousness and whether it appears differently, we still have a very practical challenge of small, fast-moving objects at a great distance. That should be solvable.
Yeah.
And Reddit has been losing their minds. And to their credit, multiple people on Reddit reached out directly to Jake Barber saying, I am a professional cameraman. Here is my gear. I am willing to come out and volunteer pro bono to show you guys how to do this. Please bring me on.
Yeah.
And Barber has agreed to work with multiple of them. He also posted directly, he said, vintage camera experts. We appreciate all the camera operator experts and enthusiasts that have been reaching out. Ideally, we would love a robust army of imagers helping us gather as much imagery as possible from different angles, distances, altitudes with a variety of equipment. Two of the primary challenges our camera operators right now have are digital interference and extreme speed and movement of the objects. So the extreme speed and movement we've already talked about. You can definitely address that. Digital interference is interesting. He said there seems to be something about the phenomenon that interferes specifically with digital camera technology. Because of this, we are looking to also add a vintage camera suite. There's lots of evidence that suggests analog imagery of the phenomenon produces better results in some circumstances.
Well, I mean, the analog people will tell you it's in all circumstances, right?
Right. Yeah. You got to get the special gold-plated wire. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. So that's super interesting. I'm curious how exactly it's messing with the digital tech, whether it can be shielded, or if it's just something fundamental about how how we record data that way.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm buying.
If it turns out to be
Either way.
quantum or consciousness, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. No. You go first.
If it turns out to be quantum or consciousness or something like that, there's nothing you can do, right? But based on their framework, right, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to eliminate possible causes.
Right.
So maybe it's Russian tech and they've developed some sort of advanced laser-focused microwave technology that fucks with observers. Yeah. Well, what can you do? Maybe we build a Faraday cage around our recording spots, or, we invest in some plating for the like. I am an idiot, and I can think of a dozen things to try off the top of my head. So I am confident that their team is pursuing this, and I was incredibly encouraged by seeing this post where not only is he acknowledging that people have been reaching out and volunteering and that they are going to work with them, but he is acknowledging that they have some non-obvious technological challenges that they are working to address and that they're not afraid to go, okay, it's messing with digital. Let's go analog.
Yeah.
Rad.
Yeah. Sounds good. I know that I am going to be buying stock in Kodak now that film is coming back.
Yeah, this is not investment advice.
We are not qualified individuals, yeah.
Yeah, so continuing on the theme of interference, because this stuff gets really weird. I am not giving you a blow-by-blow of everything that happened in the video, because what the video actually documents is their second outing. So in the first outing, they went out to the desert with their psionic people and were running an experiment for several days. This was the same thing. Several months later, they're back out in the desert. They're running another multi-day experiment and documenting everything. In the course of that, multiple weird things happened, which I'm not going to get super into details about, but there were a couple of incidents that were very strange that kind of spoke to this idea of the phenomenon is maybe interfering with their ability to interact with it. Alex Klokas, who is the kind of host of the videos and one of the partners at Skywatcher, he said, "We and the rest of our team are doing our very best to collect a robust set of data with all of to share with all of you. But I hope you can understand that it's not as easy as it sounds. We're talking about objects that seemingly are able to appear and disappear in real time. We're talking about objects that seem to evade our sensors, and they seem to actually turn our sensors off at times."
Really? They turn the sensors off?
Yeah. Now, I don't have any more details on what happened to Skywatcher, but if you watch Skinwalker Ranch, this happens all the time. It's wild. Okay. They talk about like regular normal equipment that you use all the time anywhere else. You bring it onto the ranch and it just starts malfunctioning. Then you leave the ranch and it works again. The obvious question is there some sort of EM field or something? Well, they've been testing for that shit and they can't find it. But it's weird things like the batteries will just drain incredibly quickly. They run all these tests with drones where they put up a swarm of like 500 drones in the air. And there's this really incredible shot one night of they were going to run a test of drones, flying them through the air in a grid to see if there was some sort of interference in the air that you would be able to see in the way that the grid was deforming. And they flew this grid up in the air, and the drones just started raining out of the sky. Like, it was buck wild. But the main thing is, there was a night where they were shining lasers up in the sky, these incredibly high-powered lasers. And there's this area up in the air that they believe there's some sort of energy field or something there. So their goal was to shine the laser through it and point telescopes at it and see if the laser deflects at all.
Sure.
They brought all these telescope experts out who all brought their own telescopes, and they're setting them up. And these telescope experts are pulling their hair out because every time they calibrate the telescope to point it at a star, the entry for that star is deleted from their database. Oh, no. They ended up having to manually aim the telescopes, and they're losing their minds. These are guys that do this all the time. There was another incident where they brought out this team called UAPX, who have built what is effectively a tornado chasing van, but for documenting UFOs. They've got all these laptops in the back that's bristling with sensors and camera gear. Sure. They were going to launch these rockets up in the air and do a whole bunch of things at once. And every time they launched the rocket, you'd see Taylor going 5, 4, 3, and then it would cut to inside the van. The guy in there is just cursing us. There's blue screens of death on every screen. It's like, God! And, he'd quickly reboot everything, but the rocket's already launched. And this didn't happen once or twice. It happened like 12 times over the course of the night. They're like, we run this equipment all the time. This never happens. And of course, like, as a skeptic, random things happen, weird things happen. Maybe there's an EM field or something, but like, when you see this happen enough, it's hard to avoid the impression that the phenomena is just like messing with you. Like, oh, you want to get footage of it? Okay, good luck.
Yeah,
super weird. Cloacus said, "We sent the helicopter out to intercept the Tic Tac, but the first attempt failed because our radar was being jammed." So again, another like signals issue. Maybe there's some sort of hostile tech on here.
Yeah, right.
Who knows, right? Like, but that's an interesting data point.
Yeah, I mean, radar jamming sounds like totally American or like foreign national tech.
Yeah, totally. That doesn't feel necessarily non-human, but it's definitely interesting. It gets weirder, though. Barber says, our helicopter launched, and about half a mile out, the helicopter stopped moving.
What?
Engines running.
That sounds like a problem.
Engines running, blades turning, but it would not go forward. It would not go up. It would not go left or right. It was stuck there.
What?
That's not a thing.
But it wasn't falling either.
No.
That's so weird.
They had a brief interview with the pilot, Gary Shipman, who said, "We were called out to intercept an object that was found on radar. We went to the location where it was supposed to be at. We circled a couple times and were requested to climb another 1,000 feet. The instrumentation started to bounce and the collective basically was frozen. I have never experienced anything like it before. I've got over 4,000 hours of flight time and this has never happened before."
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a pilot. I'm not a technician. I don't know. There is a brief shot in the video of them being interfered with. One of the shots is of the helicopter's instruments during that thing. If you're a helicopter pilot, go check it out. Maybe you'll be like, "Oh, I know what that is." Or maybe you'll be like, "What the fuck? That's not supposed to happen."
And then tell us.
Yeah. There's also some more mundane shit, like magnetic compasses being interfered with. You know, they're like, "That's north," but the compass is just doing its own thing. You know, classic UFO shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I gotta admit, now you got me all excited to go watch this thing. So I've got that queued up on my watch list for tonight.
Seriously, it's like a 5-second shot, but yeah, like check it out.
Still.
Maybe you'll recognize something.
Yeah. Oh, not for the helicopter. This video sounds fascinating.
It was good. It was good. They do a good job with it.
Yeah. So what's next on this? Like gathering more data, Faraday cages for the cameras, bigger helicopters. I don't know.
I'm sure Barber would like just keep getting bigger and bigger helicopters. Like, "Oh, you stopped that one, try stopping this one." Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did talk a little bit about what's next. Fowler said, "We are actively working with and seeking more third-party, non-ufologists, physicists, scientists, and academia. We want them to come and analyze our data and produce third-party independent analysis. They would get full access to our data." So this is taking them from level 3 to level 4.
Yeah. I'm ready. Let's go. How do we sign up for this?
I mean, there's a contact form on their website if you want to sign up. I don't know if they'll take 2 random podcasters, but, you know, give it a shot, man.
Hey, why not? Okay, so aside from that, what's next? This is only part 2, right?
Absolutely. Now, you may remember at the beginning, we talked about their, what was it? Ambitious but achievable goal of proving psionic and mechanical summoning by the end of the year. So we've talked a lot about the mechanical side, the dog whistle. They feel very confident in that. They're ready to start bringing in researchers. Cloca said part 3 of Skywatcher is going to be about psionics. It's going to be about the team we've assembled. You're going to hear from some of them directly. You'll hear about their experiences, their background, and how they found themselves here alongside us today. And if we can validate the existence of these abilities completely and scientifically, then that information necessitates an entirely new concept of reality and our place in it as human beings.
Sounds good. Let's get weird.
Let's get weird.
Let's go.
I love that these guys are not being timid about it. They're like, "Nah, man, we're here. We're going to recover a UFO. We're going to publish scientific proof that they exist and you can summon them. We're going to do our own crash recovery. Oh, also psychics are real." Just a little detail that may upend reality as we know it. No big deal.
Whatever. No biggie. After this call, you got to help me with this contact form. I want to know what we should say to him. I'm ready.
All right. Well, I guess me and Chuck are going to go fill out a form and see if we can get invited to the desert next time they go out. Thank you all for joining us on It's a Very Exciting Time. You can find show notes and more on our website, veryexcitingtime.com, as well as links to our Discord and social media accounts.
And you can feel free to find us in the desert or email us at Scott or Chuck at Very Exciting Time. And if you do want to support the show, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/veryexcitingtime.
And Chuck, as always, my wife thanks you for listening to me talk about UFOs so she doesn't have to.